Tinuke is a researcher and instructor at the University of Calgary and Mount Royal University. So I will now pass it on to you, Tinuke. You have 2 minutes and you can start.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, and it's really good to meet everyone, as well as the other panelists. So my research actually stemmed from the fact that I am a Nigerian, and I grew up in Nigeria. And my first point of inquiry was how can we find a sustainable source of income for women so that they could actually be financially independent? And as I was doing that with my background in civil engineering, I had some interest in waste management. And I came across this quote that basically sums up the community-based approach that I use towards waste management. And it says that waste flows 24/7 and it does not, there's no break on the weekends and there's no break on public holidays. It flows consistently and it typically flows into low-income marginalized communities. And so, with that in mind, I started thinking about ways in which we can actually address that. You know, if it's flowing into low-income communities, how can we harness that in a way that it could actually be profitable for the women in these low-income communities? And so, my research took me into as I started delving into this waste and opportunities in there. I noticed that. Based on this research that had been done by the World Bank. It's called, I cannot remember what it's called. I think it's called What the Waste. Anyway, it's very popularly known. And in that document, they had done a survey and it showed that almost 80% of the waste sometimes depend between 40 and 80% of the waste generated, particularly in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, was organic. And so to me, that was almost like a low-hanging fruit. So how do we actually harness this type of waste and find opportunities for communities? And I used a technology that I hope to share with you called the Black Soldier Fly technology. And that is what my research still is all about. So thank you.
So, Tinuke, your work explores how organic waste can be transformed using black soldier flight systems. Can you explain how these circular approaches turn food and organic waste into valuable resources that support both climate action and local livelihood?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the question. So the black fly, just as the name suggests, it's an insect that when exposed to organic waste, and so the organic waste can be organic waste of any form. It can be fruits, vegetables, it could be human waste, it could be anything organic that has its origin from organic means can be broken down by these flies when they are in the larva form. So the flies lay eggs, and the eggs transform into larva after some time. But from the infantile larva to when they actually begin to pupate, they are voracious consumers of organic waste. And so when they consume the waste, they shed their exoskeletons, which also begins to add into the compost that they leave behind. The flies leave two products, so they generate two products. They generate the compost that's very nutrient rich, and they also serve as a source of insect protein. So you can harvest compost as well as this insect protein from the waste that you have basically generated. The insects can be fed to micro livestock. And so when you're thinking pigs, you're thinking chickens, even fishes and aquaculture, you can also use the larva there. The larva is also very popular in the pet industry. So people actually harvest them and sell them for feeding geckos, lizards, birds, So there's a lot of use for them. So from the bio waste, you get these two products. And in terms of how it supports livelihoods is in the site where I did my the research was in Tanzania. And there, we're able to sell the larva for income for the women, as well as provide compost because they're all small scale farmers. And so they were able to use the compost to generate crops that they sold in the marketplace. In terms of how it supports climate action, when we leave organic waste in open dumps, which is pervasive in low-income communities, what happens is you create an anaerobic situation where you are just generating methane as well as carbon dioxide. And so using these black soldier flies actually has a direct mitigation in terms of climate change.
Thanks, Nika. Your work is amazing. Like it was, I never heard of, I never heard of the a black soldier fly system until, until you started doing it, which is really cool. So well done. Now, your work bridges science, technology, and society, right? Now, why is it important to integrate community knowledge and cultural context when developing sustainable waste management solutions?
Thank you for that question. So actually a very good question. So diving into waste and how we should better manage waste in low-income communities, I quickly came to the realization that waste management has been a discussion, particularly in the African context, for decades. However, the problem is not going away. And so, just going through the literature, it was the same frustrations that seem to be a common thread amongst researchers. And that's the fact that we are not bereft of technologies. However, the technologies are not appropriate. And so there's this notion of appropriate technologies. And if we do not integrate community knowledge or the cultural context, the technology will not be appropriate. And we're not shy or we're not there's no lack of infrastructure in developing countries or low-income settings that are derelict, that are not used because they can only be used for a certain amount of time. But when it comes to actually having the operating the maintenance cost to maintain these very sophisticated instruments that have been imported but cannot be maintained by the local knowledge in institute, then it becomes derelict. No one is using it. And so it's very important to make sure that whatever solutions we're designing in terms of waste management is actually appropriate to the locations and appropriate to the cultural norms of the people who are going to be using it. Ghana was one very good case study, and I believe there are a few others that are just that can be found around many communities, both within Africa as well as outside in other developing countries.
Thanks, Nika. That was great, and it shows in the work that you do. Share with us how you integrated the Black Soldier flies into the community that you worked with, right? You worked with the women, so that was really great. Thank you. Your current project connects bio waste management with urban gardening and food systems. Okay, how can circular approaches like black soldier fly treatment strengthen the food security while reducing environmental impact?
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, I think the question probably was answered with all the other questions that had been asked before, but I'll just pick the thread of agriculture. So right now, I mean, the initial study was in Tanzania, but I am adapting the study now to Canada, Calgary, where I live. And so here, what's being practiced is more urban agriculture. I'm focusing more on urban community gardeners, and it's very necessary because we all are very familiar with the high alarming rates of food insecurity, particularly in the urban context. And so, with the black soldier fly technology, especially with the compost that's generated, we know that using the compost is advantageous compared to using chemical fertilizers. because it actually promotes resistant. You're able to grow plants that are resistant to pest infestation because they have defense mechanisms that the compost itself promotes. And then additionally, with the insect, the larva from the black soldier fly technology, we're able to actually begin to research how we can actually have a closed loop system in within urban agriculture. In the city of Calgary, households are allowed to have up to 6 chickens to raise them by themselves. And so, with that provision in the bylaw, we see that we can actually have a closed loop system operating even in urban cities in Northern America. And so, but the question then becomes, how do we sustain it and maintain it year round? And so this is part of the research. Like if we can actually sustain it year round, then of course, first of all, we can grow more crops, we can satisfy food insecurity, and then of course we can also build community because people tend to interact more when they're farming side by side.
That's very good. Thanks, Nikki. That's really great.